in Inscape at the heart of the world. What does this mystery of the Incarnation mean for the transformation of our human existence in the image of Christ? For one, it means that God invites us to approach Him not in a conquering or surpassing of our nature, but in the simple restoration of our nature to the integrity that it had in the beginning, which, however, is only possible as grace, as movement beyond merely being itself, yet as itself, into communion with the divine. The paradoxical thing is that this integrity can be restored, not by remaining on the level of so-called pure nature, but by opening wide all the doors and windows of our nature to their inherent Trinitarian meaning. We are fulfilled only when nature and grace are united. What do I mean by this? I mean that all of creation, and especially the whole being of the human person, is already a capax Dei, a capacity for God. God does not need to be found, therefore, in an empty waste, as Isaiah says, "I have not spoken in secret from some place in the land of darkness. I have not said to the descendants of Jacob, look for me in an empty waste." Isaiah chapter 45, verse 19. Yes, God utterly transcends any glimpses of Him that we could try to grasp as our own, but that does not mean that we do not touch and receive Him even at the heart of created realities. He speaks within them even as He transcends them, and He transcends them in a way that utterly affirms and shelters their created being and the unique word that they speak from Him. In this we can speak of a continuity within discontinuity, and a discontinuity within continuity, in that God utterly surpasses all created being, while He is also the abiding ground of created being as the infinite being, as being itself. He is not found in an empty waste because, as much as He transcends the limited conceptions of the human mind, and even the breathtaking beauty of the created order, this does not mean that He is more like nothingness than like being. Rather, He is the supereminent fulfillment of all being, the beauty of which all beauty speaks, the goodness that makes all good things truly good, the truth which is the foundation and origin of all truth, and which is grasped when truth itself is welcomed and received. When man rejects creation in order to draw near to God, he is in danger of falling into an abyss, unless his journey is supported on the twofold path of the real continuity in discontinuity between created being and uncreated being, and of the bridge of the incarnate Son of God, Jesus Christ. And this path is indeed only one. For before original sin, there would have been no rupture, no discontinuity between God's transcendence beyond creation and His utter closeness to it. For as much as the natural world is not God and cannot attain to God on its own power, for God infinitely transcends in His own eternal mystery, it is nonetheless so totally indebted to and rooted in God, in grace, for its very being, that it is appropriate to say that it floats always cradled in the ocean of grace, in the ocean of God, just as a child in the womb is sheltered always in the body of her mother. While there is an infinite difference between mere nature and grace, the life of God nonetheless, the profound and anguishing division between the two, the abyss of separation, appeared only because of sin, and this abyss is overcome only in the reconciling humanity of Jesus Christ. And as we allow ourselves to be grasped by Christ, to gaze upon the face of God shining in His countenance, and to be transformed in His likeness from glory unto glory, our humanity passes from the glory of nature to the glory of grace, the former fulfilled and consummated in the latter. And as much as a man may be absorbed in the incomprehensible mystery of God during the act of contemplation, such that he loses his conscious awareness, for a moment, of created reality, he is really not leaving behind creation, but living creation as a fully actualized intimacy in ecstatic and contemplative love with the Trinity. Even therefore, in the discontinuity by which our created being reaches out to the ever greater God, There is a deeper continuity, since our being and the whole being of creation is, in the last analysis, a created outflow of the love of God, inherently oriented to return back into the fullness of this love once again. And thus, in doing so, it does not become less of what it is and what it has always been, but rather it becomes more fully and freely itself by resting again in the shelter of the being that it, itself, manifests and on which it depends at every instant for its existence. Gerard Manley Hopkins spoke beautifully of this with the term Inscape, a kind of bounded infinity at the heart of each and every created reality. This inscape is, as it were, the opposite of both landscape and escape, or rather their true inner fulfillment. It refers to the wide expanse, the profound depth that we discover opening out before us, not through the rolling hills or plains that stretch before our eyes, or even the stars dotting the heavens, but through the interior fullness of each reality that unveils its authentic depth through the intensity of our receptive and contemplative contact with it. At the core of each being, in other words, we discover that it is rooted in God and is sustained unceasingly by Him. We discover that its own beauty, goodness, and truth is a reflection of the uncreated beauty, goodness, and truth of God. And precisely because our contact with a created thing, when it reaches this level of intimacy, brings us into contact with God, it is also escape from the narrowness of our own fears and compulsions, and even from the mere everyday world of mundane tasks and occupations. It is our liberation into the attitude of childlike wonder and playfulness, which lifts us up into the joy and restfulness of being sheltered in the love of God, which in turn does not divorce us from reality as an escape, but allows us to understand its true meaning and beauty more deeply. In other words, its true inscape.